What's going on, everybody? I am here to do a review for MaXXXine. MaXXXine is one of those movies that I've been looking forward to ever since I found out they was going to have a release date for it. As a fan of the previous two entries, X and Pearl, I was very looking forward to how they were going to conclude this trilogy, and this actually exceeded my expectations. I already knew going into this that this movie was going to be great, but I didn't know it was going to end up being phenomenal. So MaXXXine is the third, and as far as I know, final installment in the X trilogy. Of course, X came out first, I believe, back in 2021 or 2020. I'm not exactly sure between the 2 years, but I want to say it was 2021. Under A24, it was a little unknown movie that pretty much took off in a huge way, and then they followed up with the sequel, which is actually a prequel called Pearl that came out, I believe, in 2022. And then now we have the final installment, allegedly the final installment, called MaXXXine. So MaXXXine pretty much is taking place in 1985, which is about 6 years after the events of X, where you have this woman by the name of MaXXXine who is an adult film entertainer, and she's trying to make her way and break out into the Hollywood scene and to be taken serious as a serious Hollywood actress, and she's willing to do whatever it is and whatever it takes in order to ensure that her dreams end up becoming a reality. Because one of the things that she's always said is that she just wanted to become famous. It pretty much lines up with how she was in X, with her basically only being an adult star, but now she wants to be taken seriously as a regular standard Hollywood actress. And I like that they talk about how with her being in that line of work, and people pretty much know her from that and only that it's going to be hard for her to break into that scene, because again, one is competition against other women who want the same thing that she wants, but also because she is in that line of work, it's going to be hard for people to take her serious. So she has to go the extra mile to prove that she can actually do it. And the thing of it is, she actually is better than some of the women out there who've never done the type of work that she's done, and she does it like as if she's a pro, like she's been almost as if she's been doing it for a very long time. But of course, you know, everything is not going to go well for her, because there's always something going on in the back end, and that's basically her past coming back to haunt her, because somebody out there knows about her life more so from the movie X and the events of what happened in that movie. If you've seen the movie, you know exactly what it is that I'm talking about. And somebody out there is pretty much watching her, but she has no clue who the person is, why they're following her. She thinks that everything has been covered up from what happened in those events, but apparently nothing has really been as buried as she would like it to be, and she doesn't really know who to trust. And also, this movie takes place around the time of The Night Stalker, which, by the way, shameless plug, that will be my upcoming True Crime Sunday entry, and I intentionally did that because of this movie. So The Night Stalker is basically this person who's been going around Hollywood, the Los Angeles area, basically taking out these women and leaving his mark, and I believe it lasted for about a year before they actually captured him. And like I said, if you want to see the True Crime Sunday on Richard Ramirez, aka the Night Stalker, make sure y'all subscribe to the Patreon and hit that $3 tier. Free trial for 7 days. But all of that's going on while at the same time she's still trying to figure out who is this person that's trying to expose her for what she's done, because the person that she believes is, you know, like not so much believes is stalking her or trying to get things out of her, is masquerading themselves as the Night Stalker. So it's like, okay, who is this person? It can't be the Night Stalker that's doing it, so who is doing it? And that's the biggest mystery of the movie. But when they reveal who it is, I think that's a very good plot twist, because I don't think myself or anyone in the audience saw that particular plot twist coming. Mia Goth as MaXXXine is great, phenomenal. She's gonna be huge. I can't wait if they ever release that Blade movie to see what she's gonna do with that Lilith role. When I found out she was cast in that role to play Lilith, I said that's perfect casting, because she can do horror well based on her performances in X and most definitely in Pearl. And the gruesomeness that happened in this movie, I mean, even after looking at X and Pearl, those were pretty gruesome, but it's some of the stuff in here I wasn't expecting. I'll just leave it like this: car keys, a car, a gun, and it was something else. I'm just leaving those as little hints, so if you want to see the movie, just look back to this review and be like, oh, okay, I know what Torian was talking about. And if you have seen the movie, you know exactly what it is that I am referring to. One thing that I also liked about this movie is that this movie didn't lean too much on the horror side where the previous two entries did. X leaned on horror, Pearl definitely leaned in on horror. But this one was more like a murder mystery slash thriller with horror elements intertwined into it, which I liked. What a way to end off the series and not completely hit you over the head with the horror. Not saying if they wanted to do that, I would have been fine with that too, but I'm glad that they actually went the route that they did as far as implementing a more psychological, not so much a psychological thriller, but a thriller slash murder mystery crime type of narrative, instead of just knocking you over the head with just the flat out horror. And I see that, you know, with this movie they added in some additional like heavy hitting names, like they had Giancarlo Esposito in here, they had Kevin Bacon in here, whereas the first couple of movies you had you know, the more bigger names were like Jenna Ortega. They even had Kid Cudi in the first one. At that time, Mia Goth wasn't really known like that, but then as time went on, she became a more household name. And I'm liking that, you know, with this last go around, that they started to implement and put more bigger names attached to it, which means they had something definitely on their hands. A24 just knows how to do these type of movies. Rarely do they ever fail when it comes to doing movies like this. They're like a breath of fresh air, where you'll take a movie that doesn't have to be a big budget and you'll turn it into something great. But then when it comes to horror movies, they usually are not that cost effective. They're not that fine. They're not fiscally expensive. Those are some of the cheapest movies to make, and sometimes end up being some of the best movies ever made on the financial side, on a box office side as well. One thing that I really liked is how much of a badass MaXXXine was in this movie. Not taking away how she was in X, but in this one she's more confident, she's more stern, she's more sure, definitely more sure of herself. And whereas if you look at her in X and you look at her in MaXXXine, you can definitely see the transformation. From X, she was more like the young, timid, kind of shy girl, not willing to go all the way. Whereas in this one, she's more of a grown woman, she's more confident, she's more sure of herself, and she's not above getting her hands dirty. And I do mean she's not above it. When you see this movie and see some of the stuff that she does, you'll be like, damn, like that's someone who's gonna be like ride or die for either herself or for those she cares about. Another thing I liked about the movie is the aesthetic feel of it. This movie made you really feel like you were back in the 80s, from the costumes to the cars to the way people wore their hair, the way they wore their makeup, even with how they filmed on different sets and everything. It made you actually believe you was in mid 1980s Hollywood. Of course, when this movie, the setting this movie is in, it was about 4 years before I was born, so of course I wouldn't remember it. But for those of you who were around during that time, can look at these set pieces and look at the aesthetic of as a whole and really appreciate what it is. And one thing I also liked is how they inserted clips of things in the news that was going on during that time outside of just the Night Stalker. Like they had little things, like when the movie was coming on, they were inserting different things going on during that time that was really affecting America as a whole. And in that particular time period, I'm assuming between the years of maybe 84 and 85, because it doesn't really specify when in 1985 this is actually happening, because it is California and you know it's always sunny out there, so it could have easily been the wintertime and you'll never know. But you would have to go based off of what was going on during that time and pinpoint, okay, this probably was in the spring, this might have been in the summer, fall, winter, all of that good stuff. But above all that, I really liked how they made everything really feel like it was the mid 80s, and I'm sure that anybody who was around during that time can definitely appreciate that. Now it's all coming back to me. When I said that there were 4 gruesome things that happened in this movie, now I remember the 4th one. It was actually the first thing that was really gruesome, and the code word I'll use for that one is genitals. That is all I'm gonna say about that. Woo! When that happened, I literally like clinched. Like I literally almost tensed up. I could not believe they actually did that. And then on top of that, not only did it happen, but they actually showed it. Like I think that's the part that got me. Whatever gruesomeness that they had in this movie, they didn't do the off-screen thing like some movies like to do. They actually showed it. And I'm very appreciative that they did. All in all, I really did enjoy this movie. I really don't have anything bad to really say about this movie because I'm a fan of the series as a whole. I think people really didn't care for Pearl that much opposed to X, but I think MaXXXine is a very good series ender or good trilogy. They say that if this movie does what it's supposed to do, this could be one of the best horror trilogies ever made, especially in modern day when horror movies aren't really well received the way they used to be back then. But I think they actually did a good job in portraying and basically putting and fleshing out a good story and a good character. And I know a lot of people say, oh, they don't like, female characters and everything like that. Let me tell you something right now. We can put all of that to rest because this is one of the best written female characters I've seen in quite some time. Like I really have no critiques about it, because when you look at, like I said, when you look at how she was in X and then you see how she is in Pearl, it's almost like night and day between the two characters. But you would have to look at those movies and really examine why I said what I said. So I really did enjoy MaXXXine. That was my review for MaXXXine. Y'all let me know what y'all think about it down in the comments. This is a movie that you will check out. Have you seen X and Pearl? And if you haven't, will you watch X and Pearl and then watch MaXXXine? Y'all let me know what you think. Be safe and be one.